Hi there. We're going to have a little discussion today about fire making implements. Ignition sources, basically, lighters are typically what people carry. And for different uses, for use in bug out bags, for camping, hunting, emergency kits, that kind of thing. Okay? Um, the old standby, the thing that most people go to, that you'll find at the bottom of most people's kits, just an ordinary little butane lighter. Might be this, might be a Bic. They kind of have their cult followings. Okay, just these little 99-cent lighters are great. And when you compare them to the primitive methods, this is really a wonderful little contraption of the modern age. Okay, these adjustable ones, you always learned in high school about making a little torch out of them. This is something that Cody Lundeen talks about in his book. If you're in difficult fire lighting conditions, that might be an asset to you. Just something to think about. These ones here, these De Jeep ones made in France, are pretty nice. As nice as I've found of the butane variety, I think. They're adjustable, not quite as adjustable as those ones. I've never tried doing the little riggy thing where you take the armor off this and ratchet it up like you can, which has obviously been done with those ones there. The advantage of any of these lighters, more so even with these 99-cent ones, is they're very cheap. You can buy, Walmart has those Scripto ones that are similar to these. Last I checked, they were $2 for 7 of them. You can see inflation because the same pack used to have 8 for $2. But, they're good. I keep them in. All of my kits have at least 1 or 2 of those. Bics, I typically don't stock Bics. I agree that the fit and finish on them is a little bit better than these ones. Okay, but you can adjust the flame. I like that some of the Bics come in like a vacuum sealed or a plastic sealed pouch. And I just leave them in that and then put them in a kit. Okay, usually along with some of these, because these will be the first line, and then that Bic, if the whole thing gets totally soaked, I know I can just rip that Bic open, because that might be a situation where you need fire fastest. Okay, and you can rip the Bic open and it would be good to go. Now, a lot of times the whole waterproofness of lighters and other types of implements gets overplayed, I think. Anyone who's a smoker will tell you that, if you get your lighter wet, it's just, a lot of times, it's a matter of just like blowing, into it to get the water out of there. The flints that these steel wheels spin on, it's the same thing as ferrocerium. It's the exact same material. Okay? So the thing that makes this waterproof, essentially that spark part is waterproof. The trouble you get with a butane lighter, sometimes water can get into the little nozzle where the gas is going to come out, and it can make a little seal in there. The water will actually stop the gas from coming out. So a lot of times just blowing it out, shaking it a little bit, and it'll work. Okay? So you can go out and you can buy dedicated butane lighters that are waterproof and have a cover that flips over the top. One thing that I like to watch out for, though, that you'll see a lot with those, is a lot of times you'll see that piezoelectric ignition. Okay? And the piezoelectric ignition, in my view, is a bad move. I mean, it's fine, for an everyday carry lighter, for a lighter that if you're a smoker that you're using. But if it was something that you were going to pick up and just rely on, they wear out. Every time you play with that lighter, every time you click it, there's one less click in it, which is the same as this. Okay, and you can't really replace these, but these last a long time. Okay, the little ferro flints, you see them right here. This here is exactly the same material as this, and the lighter makers know that, but they're making something with the piezo ignition that is a limited use item. They're not making it to last forever. The same way, say, Zippo makes their lighters, and when they made a little jet flame butane lighter, look what they kept. They kept the flint wheel right in it. Okay? Now this one's broken, so you can't get a demo of that, but we'll get into that in a second. Okay? I want to move on to the Zippos, because the Zippos are, I was surprised as how controversial the Zippo is, okay, for preps. People hate Zippos. Some people do, because they lose their fuel over time, as opposed to these, which, you know, I mean, this one here, I think I bought, it must be 10 years since I bought this one. I bought them on eBay. I bought a 50-pack. These ones I get at the grocery store, but I recognize this one as being one that I bought in a 50-pack on eBay, like probably at least 10 years ago. And, you know, it still works. If I had one of these that I fueled up 10 years ago, I can guarantee you that it would not work today unless I took some special precautions, okay? Basically, the way any wick lighter works, except for, you know, ones that are sealed, like some of the peanut ones have like an O-ring seal. When you twist them down, you know, that'll hold the fuel. But any of the ones that don't have an actual like gas seal on them will lose their fuel over time, okay? So it makes it less ideal to store in a bug-out bag for some situations. Like if you want to just grab it and go, okay, it's not as nice, okay? In all, these are a lot more durable than any of these, okay? The fit and finish on these are excellent. Make sure you get an actual Zippo. This is a kind of a retro design, this one here. But here's an example. This one here I know for a fact hasn't been fueled. The spark still works. Spark still works, but as you see, no flame. So they came up with a little fuel bottle thing Zippo has. It's like one of those little like keychain little bottles, you know, like spun aluminum, milled aluminum bottles. I have one. I don't particularly care for it. It's hard to open and you squeeze the fuel into it. This is what I do, and this is what I've been doing for years, and you save a lot on fuel, even more so. I mean, even if you use Ronson or Zippo fluid, these are pretty cheap to run. But Coleman fuel and Zippo fluid are basically the same thing, okay? If you run Coleman fuel in your Zippo, you will not notice a difference. That's what I mean when I say they're the same thing. The only difference is there's some corrosion inhibitors in this. And from what I understand, there might be something to keep it from evaporating a little bit more in the Zippo stuff. But then the next question is, okay, so I bought a gallon of Coleman fuel. How do I get it in my Zippos? I mean, you imagine someone holding a gallon can of Coleman fuel trying to pour it into a Zippo. It's ridiculous. Well, I mean, if you're packaging it down into these MSR bottles anyway for use in camp stoves, and that's another point. If you're carrying a camp stove that runs on Coleman fuel, I don't know why you would, you know? All right, so if you look at this, let me see. I don't know if I can get the light. Let me see here. Well, take my word for it. Oh, you can see through it there. There's a little hole in the threads, in the actual threads of the cap. Okay? And there's a matching one on the other side so you don't get a vacuum. Okay? And what that is for, that's designed to allow you to pour precision fluid into a camp stove that isn't using a pump. Like if you're going to put in SV123, or if you're going to fill up a Coleman suitcase, you could actually pour, and that's actually what this little tip is right here. It'll let you pour it, and it won't dribble down the side of the bottle, okay? And it, with very, very little practice, is very easy to fill a Zippo with a Coleman fuel bottle, okay? So once you've done that, I mean, you're paying $10 for a gallon of fuel. How long would it take you to go through a gallon of fuel in a Zippo? Okay, so for a bug-in situation or just general everyday carry use, it doesn't make sense to buy the little squeeze bottles anymore or think about how to store them, because this thing is robust enough that you torque it down tight. You could keep that in a car in the middle of the summer and not worry about it blowing your car up. Okay, definitely pay attention in that situation to where the fill line is here. But these are very robust bottles. Okay. So the other option is, if you don't want to do this, if you just want to store one of these, you can vacuum seal it. Put it in a food saver bag, seal it up when it's full of fuel, and it'll last for literally years until you crack it open. Then once you crack it open, you've got your same like week and a half before you'd have to fuel it up again. If you had a small like 11-ounce MSR bottle in your preps, I mean, that would probably last you for another year, you know. So that's something to think of, you know. Now, so let's look at some of our other options here. You know, you got matches. Matches are also very controversial. These happen to be strike anywhere matches. You can usually tell there's kind of a two-tone tip. Okay. A lot of people don't see the use of them. There is something that you just use and forget. A couple of points about matches is if you were in a group and you were splitting up, you can't split up a lighter, but you can divvy up matches. Okay, so there's that. Okay, another thing about them is they work in just about any temperature. You know, and you can get nicer ones than this. You can get, you know, storm matches or whatever. But we've been having a real cold snap out here in Western New York. And I made sure that all my kits, my car kits, had matches. Because, you know, with any of these lighters, their performance in cold weather will be hampered. Okay? The butane runs into exactly the same issue we were talking about with the camp stoves. If it gets down to an ambient temperature much below the boiling point of the fuel, they don't light. You can still get a spark out of them, but they don't light. Now, if you're carrying this in a pocket in your clothing, obviously your body heat is going to keep it probably warm, okay? And unlike a camp stove, you're not going to be using it lit for enough time for evaporative cooling really to compromise it. So you got that. But if you're going to keep this in a kit in your car, in the trunk of your car in the dead of winter, out here, it's not going to work when you pull it out, okay? Doesn't matter if it's in a waterproof container, you know, you have to warm it up. Now, whether or not that is a big deal to you, as far as I'm concerned, I'll just carry a few matches because I know they'll work right when I need them to work. Okay. Next thing, we can come over here to some more primitive fire starting methods, a ferro rod and a Doan magnesium bar. I mean, these both have their place. You know, they're very reliable. They will work, you know, in cold conditions. They'll work when they're soaking wet. You know, so you can get a fire started with them. It's more difficult, though. I mean, it's more of a process. You don't get right to flame the way you do with lighters, okay? But it's definitely doable, and either one of these is definitely better than going to, like, a super primitive method, like flint and steel or, you know, a bow drill or something, which, you know, you probably should know how to do, but as far as I'm concerned, if I already own all this stuff, I think I'm a little bit ahead from an evolutionary standpoint than having to rely on super primitive methods. But these are a good thing to keep. I usually keep a Doan bar. Like if you look, let me see here. On my Mora Triflex here, underneath this camo wrap, there's Day-Glo duct tape, and underneath the Day-Glo duct tape is a brand new, never used Doan bar. Okay. The thing, a point about ferro rods in general, and this covers all of these guys, and it covers both of these two things, is ferrocerium is subject to corrosion, especially if it gets exposed to salt water or water in general, okay? Once you break through the little paint coating, the little lacquer coating they put on these, this one has never been struck. See, I keep it toggled up with this. But once you get rid of this black coating that you have to get through, all right, that bar will start to break down. Okay, which brings to another point about storing Zippos or any lighter. You don't have any choice with these ones, but with the Zippos, I like to store them. I don't even fuel them to store them. You know, I monkeyed around with the food saver bags, but I just keep a small 11-ounce MSR bottle, some flints, some wicks, and a little kit in my vehicle kits, and then, if I was stranded and my EDC lighter wasn't working anymore, I could make one of the Zippos work. But the Zippo that's in there has no fluid in it and has no flint in it. Okay? Because if there's even a nick in the paint coating of one of those things, sometimes they can just break down. I know it's happened to me at least once where I've looked at the flint that you keep as a backup in the bottom of these things, and I look at it and all of a sudden it's just gray powder. What happened? Well, there must have been a nick in there, and then over time it either got exposed to moisture or temperature change, and it just basically disintegrated. Ferrocerium can disintegrate if it's exposed to air and moisture. Okay, so that's a good reason why I definitely have, like, these are some practice ones that I'll take out with me when I'm camping or out at the property and I want to start a fire with a more primitive method because it's not a survival situation. Practice to get used to using these. But then the ones that are actually in my kits are absolutely pristine, and the coating hasn't been touched. Okay. So yeah, there's just a couple cents on that stuff. You see also I got some of these trick candles. Trick candles are a good thing to put in if you have a match case that you're keeping them. You put a couple of these in there as like a little tinder extender. Especially if you're putting it in there for cold weather use, you don't have to worry about the candles melting. I might, take the entire match case out for warm weather stuff. Okay, but these ones, the magic relighting candles, I don't know if you ever thought about it, but what they've done is they shred up ferrocerium and they impregnate the wicks. So that makes it's not exactly stormproof, but it's more windproof. If you lose your flame if you use the match to light the candle and then use the candle to light your fire, if it gets blown out, there's a chance it could come back, basically. You remember, if you're my age, you remember when you were a kid being annoyed by these things at your birthday party. Just something to keep an eye out, though, is watch what brand. I looked at some at Walmart, and there was a disclaimer, a time disclaimer for how long. So it seems like they just coated the part of the wick that was sticking out of the candle with ferrocerium. These ones here, these Hallmark ones, unless something changes, let me focus on them. These Hallmark ones, the ferrocerium is impregnating the entire wick. Okay, so I had one of these running out in a windy environment. I don't know, the entire time it takes to burn one of those candles is probably like 15 minutes. I'm not sure. And it would blow out and would light back up and blow out and light back up. It was pretty impressive. So, yeah. There's just a quick overview on my 2 cents on fire lighting implements. Basically, I think it's all good. I think if you're going to carry this stuff down here, definitely practice with it, play around with it in a life-threatening situation. Don't be the first time you use it. Be a life-threatening survival situation. In those situations, you'll get to an idea for what kind of your tinder has to be. Your tinder has to be a little bit more copacetic to getting a fire going with this than with some of these other ones. There was one thing. Oh, yes. The magnesium, when the magnesium burns in this, it burns very quickly. Okay? So be sure that you have something that's going to catch in the couple seconds that that's burning at whatever thousands of degrees that magnesium burns. Okay? What I like to do is I like to pull it up on a little piece of duct tape. Remember I said on this thing, it's cocooned in duct tape. All right? Take a piece of duct tape and scrape your shavings into your quarter-size pile, and then light it, and then it'll light the duct tape. And then the duct tape will burn for, longer than the magnesium does. Let's put it that way. Because duct tape is flammable. So, yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching.